Guard Report is back. Jimmy Toscano from CSNNE.com and Celtics blog. Ben Watanabe from NESN.com. I'm Jared Weiss from CLNS Radio. This is the craziest draft day in decades, it looks like, for the Celtics, or I guess since the last time when they made the move for Ray Allen. But Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Jason Terry, if anybody really cares that much, they're gone. It's the end of the Big Three era, finally, complete end. Everybody from the original Big Three era is gone, except for Rondo, I guess you could count that as. But they're going to the Brooklyn Nets, almost the New Jersey Nets. The Brooklyn Nets for Gerald Wallace, who has 3 years and $30 million left on his deal. Yikes. The expiring deal for Chris Humphries. It looks like maybe Tornake Shengelia. Nobody really knows who that is. Could be Mirza Teletovic. Nobody really knows. And then, of course, we have Reggie Evans coming to the Celtics. We have possibly Chris Joseph coming back to the Celtics after he was let go last year. And then anybody else, any other players that I'm forgetting here? It's been a pretty crazy one. Of course, the draft picks. I didn't say Bogans. A sign and trade for Keith Bogans. It's been a crazy night here in the Celtics war room. We're
the draft picks.
We're out in front of the TD Garden right now. Exactly. But we have a 2014 draft pick in which it's the lowest draft pick, or I'm sorry, the worst draft pick between either the Hawks or the Nets. So that's because of the Joe Johnson trade. Then a 2016 unprotected first-round pick and a 2018 unprotected first-round pick. And apparently a 4,095 unprotected first-round pick. So basically, it is one of the biggest hauls that has ever been happened. It's really ever happened in NBA history as far as draft picks are concerned and assets coming in are concerned. But Jimmy, we'll start with you. The Big Three era is over. How well did the Celtics cash in on all their chips?
Well, first of all, I'm still kind of shocked that it's over. Especially when you talk about Paul Pierce. I mean, he's a guy that I don't remember watching the Celtics before him. 25 years old. He's been on the team for 15 years, so that would put me at 10 years old, when I'm just at the prime of getting into sports and basketball. So that's crazy. I still haven't really gotten over that fact that he's going to be in a different uniform. That being said, I mean, everybody kind of knew the writing was on the wall. I mean, this team wasn't going anywhere with the way they were constructed. Especially once Doc Rivers left, you just kind of knew that this wasn't going to be the team that was going to take the floor. Excuse me, I'm choked up here. Next season. So, I mean, for Danny Ainge to pull in 3 first-round picks, I mean, yeah, 2018 is a long time, a long time away, but
long enough for the Nets to be a terrible team again. Exactly.
I mean, you bring guys like KG and Pierce. I mean, those guys aren't going to be on the team in a couple years, and they pretty much traded away their future. I mean, with those picks right there. So, I mean, they can't be a great team forever. I mean, unless Darren Williams and Brook Lopez become perennial all-stars for the next 10 years, those might be really good picks down the line. So, right now, is it looking good for the Celtics? No. I mean, they didn't bring anybody back that they really want in their long-term future or really in their short-term future. I mean, you can't tell me that Gerald Wallace, Chris Humphries, and Bogans are guys that they want to see, on the court for them in a couple years. So looking to next season doesn't look good. But if you're one of those guys where you're looking down the road like 4 years, well, you can't be mad about it.
Yeah, I know you tweeted earlier, there's some 8th grader out there. The Celtics are looking to make their top pick in the 2018 pick. But Ben, Courtney Lee told me tonight that it just, when you think of Boston, you think of KG and Pierce. Mm-hmm. They're so ingrained in the culture here. I mean, how does this play out for the city and for the fan base now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit older than Jimmy. I do remember before BP, before Pierce. And Pierce is really a guy that I think Celtics fans saw grow up. You saw him obviously come in as a rookie after one of probably the darkest eras in Celtics history. He had a promising beginning there with Antoine Walker, and then I think in the middle he kind of had to grow up. He was really criticized. I think that a lot of people forget that before the Hall of 2007, when he suddenly became that leader, that clutch player that we know him as now. And it is interesting that, now he's going away. It is a haul in terms of names and the draft picks that they're getting back, but I don't know that it's necessarily a haul as far as a quality. Right. And I do think that, we like to criticize guys like Ray Allen, LeBron James, whoever it might be for, lack of loyalty, for running out of town. Doc Rivers. But this is an example that, it goes both ways. A player can leave if he's a free agent, or not a free agent if you're Doc, if you have 3 years left on your contract. But, a team can also turn around and get rid of a guy who's been the face of the franchise for, decade and a half.
And you really don't see that often. I mean, it's not going to happen with Kobe. Yep. It's not going to happen with Dirk. but it had to happen here in Boston for whatever reason. Danny Ainge just had to pull the trigger on this deal. A lot of people said he wouldn't do it. He didn't have the guts to do it, and well, here it is.
He definitely had the guts.
And here
There's
it is.
no question about that.
And it's kind of funny. I mean, the happiness I felt, I think, before I was a reporter when I was in like high school, the happiness I felt when they traded for Kevin Garnett, it's kind of like the opposite now. I'm kind of feel like
despair.
I can't believe that fans tonight are like feeling like pumped about this. It's one of those things where it's like they probably lost their favorite player, whether it was Pierce or Garnett, and now they're bringing in a bunch of guys that they know aren't going to be here for the long haul. And with draft pick, I mean, they're hit or miss. I mean, especially when you're drafting at the end of the draft, which you assume the Nets will be near the end with those picks at least next year. So you really don't know what you're going to get, down there. I mean, we've seen the Celtics swing and miss on a number of picks late in the draft. So you just really got to hope that they find the right guy now.
And the big thing is that there aren't really any liquid assets coming here as far as like positive liquid assets. It's the big assets are the draft picks.
Right.
But those have a very fluid value, especially when it's coming from a team that's going to see pretty significant short-term success. So that draft pick coming next year isn't going to be very high. And Ainge even said tonight that they don't see the draft next year, which is like heralded as the super draft, as like a great deep draft, just very top-heavy with some major superstars at the top, but not really significant depth coming at the end of the round where they're likely to be picking, at least with the pick that they're going to be getting in the trade.
Yeah, it's always tough to evaluate trading picks before it's happened because it just the quality of the draft shifts so much from year to year. I noticed, someone I think on Twitter tonight was talking about the Sixers trade, the Nerlens Noel for Drew Holiday, and they said, well, at the end of the day, the Sixers traded a 17th overall pick for a guy who was slated to go first. That you can't compare guys cross-draft like that.
Yeah, if you redo that draft, Drew Holiday's the top 3 or 4 pick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's tough to say right now, that's probably not going to be a real high pick for the Nets, but in 3 years it might be a high pick, but it might be another weak draft. There might not be a game changer. 2018 it rolls around, might be the same way. So I think that's a great point. It's nice to get picks, but you can't tell which 8th grader right now if he's going to be worth drafting then.
Yeah.
Okay, just bottom line, before we go into the actual pick from tonight, did the Celtics do well with this transition so far? I mean, obviously, they're not going to hold on to 9 draft picks or whatever they have right now. They're going to be packaging these picks to try to move up in the draft or try to get some tangible players. So far, is it going at least in the right direction?
To me, this seemed like jumping the gun a little bit. You are moving Garnett and Pierce, but at the end of the day, you only had Pierce for another year. You could have bought him out. You only had Garnett for another 2 years. Now you've got guys like Gerald Wallace for another 3 years for $30 million. It's not a good deal. He's not a good player anymore.
You had Chris Humphrey's expiring deal, but you had Paul Pierce's expiring deal.
Yeah, go ahead. I think we're going to make the same point here, Jimmy.
No.
I'm going to piggyback on what you said. I just don't think I don't think the transition from the Big Three era till now is smooth at all. I mean, you lost Ray Allen to the Heat, and what happened to him this year? They won the NBA Finals. He had some huge shots in the NBA Finals. Game 6 was one of them. I mean, that shot will go down in history as one of the best clutch three-point shots. And the Celtics, I'll watch it on TV because the way Danny Ainge constructed the team this year, I mean, there were injuries and such, but I mean, and you can go back as far as trading Kendrick Perkins. Maybe he did that at the wrong time, and that ruined that team. I mean, and now Doc Rivers just gets up and leaves, and now they trade Pierce and Garnett for what a lot of people feel like was like 30 cents, 40 cents on the dollar, and you really don't have anybody of value to show for it. As of today, you don't have anybody of value to show for it. You're really, really banking on those draft picks because, like you said, Chris Humphries is what he is. He's an expiring deal. Gerald Wallace, everybody knows Gerald Wallace is a terrible contract, and it baffles me that the Celtics. I don't think
even worse than DeAndre Jordan.
I don't think the Nets could have traded Gerald Wallace to any other team but the Celtics.
What's amazing is it's a massive blockbuster trade, and Reggie Evans is the most valuable player on the dollar in the entire trade. That's pretty frightening. So let's quickly, before we run out of time, talk about the actual draft pick that was made by the Celtics tonight. We're not even going to talk about Iverson, late second-round pick, center. That's enough. That's really all you need to know there. He'll fight with Fab Melo for insignificant center on the Celtics roster, but they trade up into the lottery. So they actually made a lottery pick technically tonight, the 13th pick. They just give up 2 second-rounders next year to move from 16 to 13, and they get Kelly Olynyck, the power forward, it turns out, as we found out tonight from Danny Ainge. Not a center, but he's going to be a power forward for this team. Out of Gonzaga, he's a good low-post scorer. Low-post scoring was one of their biggest weaknesses last year, but he's a mobile guy. He seems kind of like a little bit poorer man's Cody Zeller.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that. I'm also not sure how great of a low post scorer is. I think he is a little bit more of a perimeter guy, which would have fit in really well in the Duck system. But who knows here? I think I'll let Jimmy talk a little bit more about Olynyck. But the thing that struck me most about Olynyck about this draft was Ainge's comments. I mean, could he have been setting the expectations any lower than he was when he addressed the team? I mean, when you say, when he's asked how he feels about a player he just drafted, and he says, we liked him enough to get him, that's it reminds me, it's like, the end of the night, last call at the bar, you start looking around, your standards fall a little bit. I thought that was the most interesting thing, that, a year ago he was praising Chris Joseph, Fab Melo as being guys who, and this year he gets a guy number 13 and he's saying, he's a complimentary player. He's not going to change the franchise for us. I thought he was clearly saying, listen, Celtics fans, we're not going to be that great for a while.
Yeah, I asked him, what's the role with him and Solinger? He said that I don't see those two playing together as a championship contending team. It's kind of, we're not surprised that we didn't hear from Olynyck tonight, right? I mean, it's kind of a womp thing to say right after drafting the guy.
I mean, it's funny, though. I mean, all that being said, they traded up for him. So it's kind of like, well, they liked him. They must have just really not liked anybody if they had to trade up for a guy.
Because they weren't Gorgie Jang fans after all.
I mean, they traded up for a guy that they were just okay with. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting scenario. But I mean, I think Ainge has probably had his head elsewhere, I think, during that entire press conference, considering the news broke about 20 minutes later that they just traded Pierce and Garnett and Terry and every Celtics fan's dreams are traded away. But real quick on Olynyck, I think I kind of agree with you. I think Olynyck's a guy who can stretch the floor. I mean, we see him hit NBA threes, we see him at college threes, but the test will be, can he stretch out even further? And I think that's one of the things that Ainge said that he hoped Olynyck would work on in the offseason. They really want him to stretch the floor and run. I think he's a guy that can get up and down the floor and provide energy. And with Rondo and Green and Olynyck and whoever else, Josh Smith, if they go for him, I don't think they are or should, but if they did.
They can't because they got Wallace, so they can't.
Right. So, even Wallace, I mean, those are athletic guys that are going to run. And I think they're going to transition out of that half court, and they're going to really be pushing the ball with Rondo. So if he's a guy that can come in there and just provide energy and hustle, and Ainge said he's a smart guy, and honestly, they're going to need a smart guy. They're going to need a coachable guy, because as of right now, they don't have a coach. So, I mean, there's a chance that they bring in a young guy, an inexperienced guy, and they don't want this guy coming in and dealing with this guy who thinks he's, all that. And they want a guy that's going to listen and be excited to do whatever the coach says.
So what you're saying is he's Rafe LaFrentz.
I don't know. Rafe LaFrentz, he had a couple good years. I'm not gonna put in that pressure on him yet.
So right now, they still have the mid-level exception, but they don't have a ton of cap space. They don't have any cap space. They're still over the cap. So they can just use what probably is going to be a $6 million mid-level and a biannual. But basically, right now, their starting lineup is looking something like Rondo, Bradley, Green, Wallace, and Solinger, maybe Olynyck. They're probably going to have to get a center in the free agency market. And they're going to be priced out of guys like Pekovic and really accomplished centers like that.
They're not going to go after guys like that. I actually, they don't have to use the mid-level. And I mean, I'm not sure that it would really be worth it. That's kind of a way for, if you're a team that's, close to the cap or close to luxury tax, to get, kind of an impact player for something more than the minimum. I'm not sure that, if they feel like they're a 30-35 win team, it's worth even, that expenditure.
I mean, because doing that's not going to get them the number 1 or number 2 pick, which is clearly what they kind of, it seems that's what they're going for this year. I mean, when you trade guys like that and you get the guys back that you got.
Well, maybe Chris Humphries will be the starting center next to Rajon Rondo, running the pick and roll and trying not to punch each other. It should be pretty fun.
Fun is a word.
Hard picks.
Fun is a word to describe it.
All right. Well, it's a crazy night. We're trying to have fun. We're out standing over I-93 trying to figure out what the hell happened to the Celtics franchise.